You ever hear someone say, I thought I'd be devastated, but honestly, I just feel relieved? Maybe after a breakup, after losing a job, or even after someone passes away. And there's this awkward silence that follows, like they just confessed to a crime. Because we're supposed to be sad, right? Loss equals tears. That's the script. But here's the thing, feeling relief instead of sadness doesn't make you a monster, it makes you human. And there's actually some fascinating psychology behind why your brain responds this way when something or someone leaves your life. So let's talk about it. Because maybe it's you, maybe it's someone you know, and maybe understanding this will finally silence that voice in your head whispering, what's wrong with me? First, there's the person who's been carrying something heavy for way too long. Picture this. Someone's been in a relationship that stopped feeling like love years ago. Every conversation became a negotiation. Every silence felt loaded. They stayed because leaving felt scarier than staying, because they kept thinking it might get better, because the idea of being alone seemed worse than being unhappy together. Then one day, it ends, and instead of collapsing into sadness, they feel lighter, like they can finally breathe. Here's what's happening psychologically. Relief after loss often signals that the thing you lost was costing you more than it was giving you. Your nervous system was in a constant state of low-grade stress, hypervigilance, or emotional exhaustion. When that source of stress disappears, your body responds with relief before your mind even processes what happened. It's not that you didn't care, it's that you were surviving and now you're not. The loss isn't the tragedy was what you were enduring before the loss. And here's the uncomfortable truth, we're taught to grieve what we lose, not to acknowledge what we're freed from. But sometimes freedom is the first emotion that arrives. Then there's the person who lost something they thought they wanted, only to realize they wanted the idea more than the reality. Maybe they got fired from a job they bragged about but secretly dreaded. Maybe a friendship ended that looked great on the surface but felt exhausting behind closed doors. The loss happens, and instead of devastation, there's this quiet thought. Oh, I don't have to pretend anymore. This is cognitive dissonance finally resolving itself. For months, maybe years, your actions and your feelings were misaligned. You showed up, you smiled, you performed the role of someone who was thriving, while internally something felt off. When the thing ends, the dissonance collapses. Your external reality finally matches your internal truth. And relief is what that alignment feels like. It's your brain saying, thank God we can stop lying to ourselves. The guilt comes because society tells us we should mourn our losses, not celebrate our exits. But relief isn't cruel, it's honest. And sometimes honesty feels like betrayal when you've been performing for so long. Another type? The person who feels relief because they've been anticipating the loss for so long that the actual event is almost anticlimactic. Think about someone caring for a terminally ill loved one. Months, maybe years of watching someone fade. Every hospital visit, every difficult conversation, every moment of helplessness. When death finally comes, there's sadness, yes. But there's also relief. Relief that their loved one is no longer suffering. Relief that the waiting is over. Relief that they can finally stop holding their breath. Psychologists call this anticipatory grief. You've already been grieving throughout the process. By the time the loss arrives, you've processed so much of the emotion in advance that what's left isn't the sharp shock of sudden loss. It's the exhale of an ending you've been bracing for. The relief doesn't diminish the love. It just means you've been mourning longer than people realize. Your grief didn't start at the funeral, it started long before. And then there's the person who feels relief because the loss revealed who they actually are versus who they were trying to be. Maybe they lost a career path their parents wanted for them. Maybe a relationship ended that their friends all envied. The loss felt like failure at first, but then something shifted. Without the weight of other people's expectations, they could finally ask themselves, what do I actually want? This is identity realignment. Sometimes we build lives around borrowed dreams, inherited scripts, or the pressure to be someone we're not. When those structures collapse, it's terrifying, but it's also liberating. The relief comes from realizing you're not mourning the loss of something you loved. You're mourning the loss of something you thought you were supposed to love. And once you recognize that difference, the relief transforms into possibility. Here's the final piece that ties this all together. Feeling relief instead of sadness doesn't mean you're cold, detached, or broken. It means you're responding to what the loss actually represents in your life. Maybe it was a burden lifted. Maybe it was a misalignment corrected. Maybe it was an ending you'd been grieving all along. Maybe it was a chance to finally be yourself. The sadness might come later, or it might not. And both are okay. Because grief isn't a performance. It's not something you owe anyone, including yourself. What you feel is what you feel. And relief? Relief is just your body and mind telling you the truth before your guilt can rewrite the story. So which type are you? Have you ever felt relief when you thought you'd feel sadness? Drop a comment. Let's talk about it. Because once you understand this, you stop judging yourself for feeling the wrong thing. You start recognizing that maybe, just maybe, you were feeling exactly what you needed to feel all along.